Hey, Andy here from builderhottub.com. In this video, I'm going to talk about forming the walls for our DIY hot tubs and plunge pools. So let's go ahead and take a look. Okay, so this video has come about from one of the subscribers to my channel that left me a message on one of my previous videos saying, great video, but I'd like to know more about the forming process. I looked through and I didn't have one, so I've created this video. So hopefully by the end of the video, I'll have answered all of the questions that particular gentleman had and any that you have about forming up the walls for your DIY hot tubs or plunge pools. Now, before I get going, it's always a great opportunity, you knew I was going to get that in there some point, to say please do subscribe to the channel, hit that notification icon to be notified when my videos go live. I do 2 long form videos just like this every single week, a whole bunch of shorts as well, and everything on this channel focuses around DIY hot tubs, plunge pools, parts and pretty much everything in between. So with that out of the way, let's dive in and look at forming up the walls for our hot tubs and plunge pools. So what is a form? Well, a form is a wooden mold that is going to give us the shape of the wall of our hot tubs or our plunge pools to allow us to then pour the concrete in to create the structure in the shape of said form. So it's kind of like creating a mold for hot tubs and plunge pools. What's the process for creating forms for our hot tubs and plunge pools? Well, it's pretty straightforward. Firstly, you would lay your base. So you would lay and pour a concrete base. It is totally possible to do what's known as a monopour. So this is where you pour the floor, the base, any seats, basically everything in one single pour, and it means that there's no dry joints at all. However, it's very difficult to do, and I definitely wouldn't advise it unless you are going to have a specialist concrete contractor help you out. You've got to have somebody that's done it before, that knows what they're doing, that knows how to adjust the mix if it's not flowing correctly. It's not easy, so I wouldn't suggest that you try a monopour unless you've got specialist help on this one. What you can do to help combat those dry joints is when you're actually pouring your base, you can lay some timber into the edge to kind of create a groove when you remove that timber from the base, so it gives you something that the walls can actually lock into, and it means that any water would have to go down and then back up and out, so it just gives you a means of combating the possibility of a dry joint. With your slab in place, you've then got to decide whether you're going to start on the interior or whether you're going to start on the exterior. Totally up to you. There's no right or wrong way of doing this. It's going to come down to how much space you've got and also what your design is. Now, personally, I would suggest trying to create the exterior first. However, in some cases it's just not possible. So I've seen many a customer start with the slab, then do the steps and gradually kind of work upwards. I've also had customers that have poured an exterior box, if you like, and then they've formed up the seats and poured those and steps as well on the interior. So it's totally up to you. Go for the method that's going to suit your location and your design. Whichever method you choose, you're going to start with one face of your wooden timber form, and you're going to fit your plumbing. And the next question is, should the plumbing be in the wall or behind the wall? And again, this is totally up to you. I always say, if you are confident with the plumbing that you've put together, it can go and sit in concrete. The fixtures and fittings, they're designed to sit in concrete. That's what they do. If you've made all of your joints perfectly, and if you're not sure, I've got a video on this. If you into the search bar in YouTube and you put PVC pipe joint, build a hot tub, you will find my video, and I do a deep dive on how to make those perfect PVC pipe joints. If all of your joints are perfect, if you've not forced any of the pipe into positions that it shouldn't be, if all of your joints have gone all the way into the fittings, then you have nothing to worry about and your pipework can fit nicely into those walls. If you're not confident that you're going to be able to do that, then put the plumbing behind the wall, give yourself access to it should you need to get in there for any kind of a repair. So again, there's no right or wrong method. I've had customers that have done both, so it's really down to you and your level of confidence with your plumbing. What's great about forming up the walls for your hot tubs or your plunge pools is when you are coming to fit the plumbing, you're only having to cut holes in your wooden forms to have the pipework come through for, for suction, for the jets and the gunite bodies, for example. So it's a lot easier than having to core block and then sealing up around the block. With the form, you're allowing the pipe to come through into the tub, and then when you pour, you're going to make sure that you've got a seal around that joint on the formwork so that the concrete doesn't pour out. But what you're going to end up with is a perfect seal around all of that pipework. So it's definitely an advantage to pouring your walls. After you fitted your plumbing, you are going to put your rebar and any insulation that you're adding into those walls. They're going to go inside of the forms because they're going to be covered in concrete, and they're going to add the insulation value and they're going to add the strength that you need for those walls. When you're putting in your rebar, it's always a good practice to tie those into the base. Either when you pour the slab, have some risers coming up that you can tee into, or you can drill your holes and actually sink the rebar into your base so that it's nicely tied in and it just gives you that strength that you need for your formed up walls for your hot tubs or plunge pools. The rebar that we normally use, it's a Y12 rebar, and we normally set those at 12-inch centres, and that goes both ways. So there's plenty of strength inside of those walls to keep that water in situ. When you are forming up the walls, you must really brace those walls with additional timber for strength. So what do I mean? Well, if you think about the weight of concrete that you're going to pour, the last thing that you want is your walls to end up doing this. You want them to be perfectly flat and perfectly perpendicular to the base once you've poured that concrete. So you're going to have to brace your forms. Don't rely on your plywood to actually hold that in place. You're going to have to put lots and lots of bracing, and I've got pictures behind me here that are flashing up as I'm talking about the amount of bracing that you should be looking at to really hold it in place. In this case, more is definitely better. If you're not sure, just put some more bracing in so that it doesn't move. When it comes to the pour, do it in stages, but try and do it all in one go if you can, and that just helps without having dry joints. Make sure you are vibrating down that concrete, okay? So you've got to make sure that it's got to move all the way down your forms. You've also got to make sure that the air is coming out. The last thing that you want is a big air bubble that's going to weaken your structure, and it could also be a point for leakage in the future as well. So lots of vibration, vibrate that concrete down. If you're not sure what that is, then do speak to your concrete contractor about it. They'll definitely have the tools for that, and you can hire them from local hire shops as well. When you're ordering your concrete, you want to order 4,000 PSI. You want to order with fibres if you can. So the fibres actually add to the strength, but they also help with the waterproofing. When you're adding the fibres, you're reducing the amount of air that is in the concrete. It's the air and the air bubbles in the concrete that makes it porous. So by removing those, we can give it a much better waterproofing property. If it's available, some contractors have it, some don't. Add the waterproofing agent as a chemical to the mix. Some do, some don't. So as I said, all that's going to do is just reduce the amount of bubbles and air in the mix, which means it's a much more watertight mixture. Top tip when it comes to pouring, make sure you've got plenty of hands on deck to help you. It's got to go in quickly. Time is money because they will be charging you for how long that truck is on site. So if there's lots of you to help, then it's always beneficial to your pocket, shall we say. And it also makes life a lot easier if there's plenty of hands to get that concrete in, get it vibrated down, and then get that truck out of there so it doesn't cost you any more money. Make sure that you do wait for the correct amount of time for the curing process or the drying process. So the manufacturer should be able to tell you how long that is, how long you do need to wait before you can remove those forms. Be patient, don't take them off too early. The last thing you want is crumbling walls that will be a weak spot in the future for both waterproofing and structurally if it's crumbled during the initial stage. Another top tip is if you are in a warm environment, don't have those forms drying out too quickly. You'll see quite often on construction sites where they're building homes, there'll be people spraying the concrete with hose pipes at the end of the day or during the day, and that's really to allow it not to dry out too quickly. If it dries out too quickly, it will crack. So don't allow your forms to dry out too quickly. Spray them down if you need to. Again, your concrete manufacturer or concrete contractor will be able to give you more advice than me on this matter. And finally, when you do remove those forms, it's perfectly normal to have to go back and patch up any imperfections that are in there. Try and get those walls as smooth as possible without any holes. It will make life so much easier when you come to the next stage, which will be the waterproofing and then fitting the tiles. I'm not going to cover waterproofing on this video. I do have another video all about waterproofing and tiles, so you can search that on my channel. As always, I hope you found this short video useful. Hopefully I've answered some of the questions that you have on forming up the walls for your hot tubs and plunge pools. I appreciate the view. Thank you ever so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. If you've liked this video, please do like, share and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you on the next video.